Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know I've been procrastinating on filming and editing and all of those things. I've got some travel vlogs that are coming out soon, so if you want to see anything different, those will be up. I travelled to Scotland this year, however today is going to be all about the books. I am going to be honest, I did film some October book videos, but at this point they're too late for me to upload, so I'm just going to start off with the December stuff and then mention some of the previous month's stuff along with that. So without further ado, here is my December wrap up. Now there is still this evening and tomorrow left of December, and then we are into the new year, which is crazy to me. However, with that being said, December has been a really good reading month for me compared to the previous 2 months. I have actually managed to read 5 books. The 5th one I'm actually reading at the moment, but I will be finished with it by this evening because I've only got about 20 pages left and that's doable. So I don't think I'll be able to read one more book in one day unless it was a very, very short and very good book. So I'm going to say I've read 5 books in December. I also read a couple of books in November and October. I think I read 2 books, but one of them was one that I carried through from September. And then in November, I think I managed like 2 or 3, if even that. So December was a really good reading month. So I'm going to start off with the December books first, just because I feel like people want to know about those more. But the first 4 books I'm going to mention consecutively because they are all a part of the same series. And that is the Twisted series by Anna Huang. These are basically new adult romances. They follow 4 separate young women who each fall in love with a guy that they've kind of met throughout the series. The first book follows a girl named Ava Chen, and she ends up falling for a guy named Alex Volkov, who is this kind of broody multi-billionaire, and that's kind of the theme throughout the whole series. There are these broody men. I would say the only one that is remotely almost normal is the one in the 3rd book, which is Ava's brother, and I actually ended up really liking that book. But the rest of them are like billionaires or they're like bodyguards. It's just, yeah, it's one of those series. Now I picked these up because I was really in the mood for something royalty related, especially like a royalty romance, and for some reason my head thought that this was a royalty romance. One of the books technically is, and I don't know if that's what I was relating it to, but I feel like maybe I was thinking about a different series. But anyway, I ended up picking up these 4 books. They were mushy gushy and they were okay. I rated each book 3 stars. I just didn't think they were particularly amazing, but I didn't think that they were anything terrible. They were just kind of quick reads for me. I think one of the books I read in 2 days. In fact, I think that was a theme throughout the series. I just kind of read them very, very quickly. Yeah, I'd say maybe the 3rd book was probably my favourite with the brother, just because I felt like that was slightly normal. But the dramas that all of the kind of characters had going on were very like dramatised. You could not see it happening in real life. Also, the guys are walking red flags. If that was a real person, I would fucking run. I would go to the police, I would get that restraining order, I would not be anywhere near them. I also want to say that these books are very heated. There's a lot of smut in them. I say a lot of smut. I'd say there's about 3 to 4 smut scenes. I honestly was not into the smut at all. I thought it was cringy. If any man talked to me the way that these men talk to these women in bed, no. I could not. Some people might be into that shit. No, thank you. But I got through those parts, and other than that, they were just really enjoyable. They were really quick reads, and that's what I needed at the time. So then the 5th book, which is the one that I'm currently reading, and of course I forgot to mention all of these books I've read on my Kindle this month, but the 5th book that I am currently reading and just about to finish, and I kid you not, I could not read anymore because I was beginning to get teary, and I have makeup on and that can't happen because I will have tear streaks down my face. But that book is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've heard nothing but good things about this book. Essentially, it follows a young journalist who essentially gets this weird opportunity to interview a very old classic Hollywood star who's very elusive. No one really knows anything about her. She's very mysterious. The only thing that people really know about her is that she had 7 husbands, but no one really knows why. They just thought that she was kind of like a harlot, and she had a bit of a crazy career. Obviously, this actress is named Evelyn Hugo, and the journalist, whose name is Monique, is given this opportunity. However, she quickly finds out that she wasn't actually brought there to interview Evelyn. Evelyn has a little bit of a proposition for her, and this proposition will open things up for Monique, and we don't really find out until the end of the book what this is. And I am at that part now, and I know it's gonna break. This book has broken me more times than I would like to say. I would like some personal damages paid by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because I don't think it's on. I have not cried at a book since Crescent City this year. I kind of got off to a slow start with it, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't know whether I'm gonna like this, because obviously everyone loves this book. But once I got into it, I could not stop, and I have not stopped, and I have just really enjoyed the mystery aspect of it. I've enjoyed the way the story's unfolded. I feel like the descriptions in this book are spot on. It has such a good pace as well. It just keeps you guessing, and just, it's so enthralling to hear Evelyn's story, and you just don't want her to stop talking, because you're like, okay, tell me more about your life, like I need to know. I have loved this book. I love it. I already know it's going to be 5 stars. I can already say it. It's a 5-star book, and it's probably going to be on my top 5. I love it, and I can honestly see why everyone else does as well. So obviously this could not be a short-ish video, because I also haven't mentioned the other books that I read in October and November, so I'm going to briefly mention those now once I find out what I read. So the first book that I read in October, or should I say finished, was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This is a fairy tale, it's like a young adult fairy tale retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Obviously I love Beauty and the Beast retellings. In fact, any fairy tale retelling, if they're good, they're amazing. I ended up really liking this one. It's definitely a series that I could see myself continuing on with. But just not straight away. It didn't grip me enough to be like, oh, I need the next book. I kind of found it a little bit obvious what was going to happen towards the end. I did find the twist on Beauty and the Beast really interesting, and kind of like the world that was built I thought was interesting. So I'm really kind of intrigued to see where the series goes. I did end up rating this one a 3-star. I did find it just a little bit boring and slightly slow during most of the book. I did start reading it when I was in Scotland, so obviously I didn't really have much chance to read it. However, when I did, I just found myself not really that gripped. However, it was enjoyable, so it was a 3-star. And then the only other book that I read in October was From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. This essentially follows a young woman who's a figure skater, and she's kind of hit a low on her career, and everyone's kind of thinking, you know, that she should go into teaching and give up figure skating altogether, because the guy that she was paired with basically didn't want to skate with her anymore and ended up skating with someone else. However, she is given a proposition to skate with her best friend's brother, who is her biggest enemy. I freaking loved this book. It was probably my favourite romance of the year. I haven't read many this year, but this was definitely my favourite. It kind of set some high standards for me in terms of kind of enemies to lovers romance books. I just loved the pacing of it. I also like the fact that there wasn't really much smut in this. In fact, there was only one scene of smut, which I freaking loved. Like, there was so much build up, so much tension, and smut for me is not the be all and end all of a book. In fact, I don't really care if it isn't there. I'm just there for the tension and the build up, and that's exactly what this book gave me. I loved how everything was wrapped up, and it left me wanting so much more from not only this author but also these characters. I kind of wish that there were more books about these characters, but then I feel like it would get a bit boring. But yeah, I absolutely love that one, and those were the only 2 that I read in October. So then in November I managed to read a total of 3 books, so I was going up slightly in terms of my book count, but the first book that I managed to finish was one that I was intending to read in October, and that was Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. So this book is essentially an adult historical fiction book. It takes place in America in 1915 in the Deep South. Essentially it follows a group of women of colour who essentially are kind of like warriors, like assassins almost, but they're assassinating the Ku Klux Klan. Now the Ku Klux Klan in this book are essentially demons from hell, and these women are basically fighting back. I loved the concept of this book, but I just couldn't get on board with it. I just found the writing a little tedious, and I didn't like the dialogue. There was one particular character in this book whose dialogue, I never knew what they were saying. I sat there for like 5 minutes trying to decipher what they had said, and I could never get it. I thought the idea of this book was really cool. I just don't think it was executed that well, and I really wish I could have seen this book with this concept just drawn out a little longer, because this is only a really short novella. There is no other book after this, and it's 185 pages long in hardcover. So it's a short novella, and I really feel like a book with this much substance and with a story like this really needed to be dragged out a little longer. I feel like the world building needed longer. I feel like the character stories needed longer. I didn't have enough chance to kind of connect with the characters and really feel for them, so I definitely feel like it could have done with being a bigger book and also a series. It was okay. I ended up rating it 2 stars just because I feel like, because of all those factors that I said, honestly was on the verge of DNFing it, but I really wanted to push my way through. So yeah, 2-star read. It wasn't the greatest start to my month, but I'm glad that I read it. It was something different for me. The next book that I read, I was really craving another romance after From Lukov with Love, so I decided to pick up one that I'd seen everywhere on TikTok, on Instagram, and that is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I believe that this is going to be a part of a series of romances. I'm going to guess that the second book will follow either her friend or someone else who's going to fall in love. Essentially this is another enemies to lovers. Obviously it's another kind of like winter sport romance. You essentially have a young woman who's a figure skater and a guy who is a hockey player, and because of reasons that I won't go into, one of the ice rinks at the college is basically out of use, and both the figure skaters and the hockey players have to use the same rink, and obviously that causes tension. This book is marketed as kind of like enemies to lovers, you know, he helps her figure skate and all of this. It was nothing like that. This book I described on TikTok as all smut and no substance, and I stand by that 100%. There was a lot of smut, but there was nothing else. Enemies to lovers, there wasn't any. They were enemies for like a tiny little smidgen of like the first 15 pages, and then they were like a couple and they were in love and they were sleeping together. There was no enemies to lovers here. There was no tension whatsoever, and I think that's what really bothered me, because when you're going to do enemies to lovers, you need to make it enemies to lovers. You can't just make them fall in love within the first 5 minutes of the book. So that was really frustrating. I also really didn't like one of her friends in this book. He was just such a walking red flag, and the main character just never got rid of him, and I'm like, how? There was so much about this book that was so fucking annoying. The main character was annoying. I hated it. I rated it 2 stars. I think after reading From Lukov with Love, I was expecting the same kind of thing, with the build-up and the tension, and no. I just got smart. That was it. A smart and annoying main character and annoying roommate. So then the third and final book that I managed to read in November was one that was on my list to read for the year, and that was Skin Privilege by Karen Slaughter. It also goes by another name, but I can't remember the name of it right now because I think they did a reprint, but it's the 6th book in the Grant County series, and it's also the final book in the Grant County series. If any of you guys have been watching my channel throughout the year at any point, if you have, thank you. I had this series on my list of books that I wanted to finish in the year. Technically, I think I said that I wanted to read at least, you know, a couple of the books, but if I finished the whole lot, then that was great. I have thoroughly enjoyed this series. Karen Slaughter is one of my favourite thriller authors. In fact, I think she's my only favourite thriller author at the moment. But I thoroughly love her books. She never fails to make me surprised by her twists and her endings. This particular book in the series, I'm gonna be honest, I did struggle with. I think that if I hadn't have read the rest of the books in the series, then I probably would have DNF'd this one. This one technically follows Lena a lot, and Lena is a character that I haven't really enjoyed reading about throughout the series. I don't feel like she as a character has progressed a lot and learned from her mistakes, and I just find her really infuriating. And my friend who's also read the series, I don't think she's read the past 2 books yet, but even she doesn't like Lena, so I'm not alone in this. The ending of this book really made it up to me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. After reading that, I was like, oh my god, mind blown, I can't. She's done it again. I've fallen in love with her writing. And that one I rated 3 stars. So those were all of the books that I read in December and also during October and November. I definitely found some of my favourites for the year in these past few months, and I cannot wait to tell you about those in a future video. What books did you read in December? Please let me know below, and until the next video I will see you then, so bye guys.